Hi, my name is Bill, and this is another installment of Billboard's Comics weekly feature, Girlfriend's Guide to Comics. For those of you new here, this is not meant to be kind of like a putting down of women who want to get into comic books. This is based on a time when my wife was my girlfriend and decided to buy me some comics and found a lot of stuff about the comic book hobby overwhelming. This is going to be like a kind of a primer guide for anybody who is new to the hobby or who might have questions about the hobby or who's on a significant other, somebody who is a collector and might want to know a little bit more so they could participate in the hobby with their significant other, be they male, female, whatever. So don't take the title as, you know, in a bad way. Today, I'm going to talk to you about comic book numbering. Um, this is kind of a tie-in to a earlier installment where I covered about volumes, about different volumes of comic books. Um, I talked about numbering a little bit there, but it's a bigger issue because it isn't kind of like isn't strictly confined to the realm of new volumes coming in there, where you have different issues with numbering. Um, it could be anything. Um, and it goes all the way through to the earliest histories of comic books. For example, for my first example, um, if I were to tell you that Captain Marvel, Shazam, the character that was in the movie with Zachary Levi, made his first appearance in the first issue of Whiz Comics, what number do you think that issue would be? No, it would not be number one. Whiz Comics started with issue number two. Why? Well, back in the 30s and the 40s, and I think going all the way into like the 60s and the 70s, um, the comic books mostly sold on newsstands, and people who ran newsstands or drugstores or wherever comic books were sold were not really kind of like were hesitant to take any number one issues in um, because they're they don't know if they're going to sell or not. They might just sit on the racks and not be sold at all. Um, so a lot of people would play fast and loose with this and start something with number two or number three or whatever. There's a number of comic books like this that did that, but the most famous one was Whiz Comics. Whiz Comics number two was the first issue of the series and the first issue of um, Billy Batson uh, and his alter ego Captain Marvel. Um, but if you weren't going to go try to get his first appearance and look for it, do you have any comic issues of Whiz number one? Uh, you might have a person kind of like talk to you differently. Um, I'm not saying everybody's going to take advantage of you. They might not say, "Oh wow, this is a rube." Oh here, no, but I have a couple of issue number two. Uh, it's just as important. Or like they'll probably talk to you. They'll probably tell you about this. The best one will probably let you down gently and give you like what I'm talking to you now. Some might be talking down to you, and I hope you don't think I'm doing that. I apologize if that is. That's not my intent. So keep that in mind. But this is something to keep in mind that this is a certain thing that you might have to look out for. Um, then you have the case of Blue Beetle. Blue Beetle was created just a little bit afterwards, after Captain Marvel. Captain Marvel's first issue was, I think, back in 1940, 1941. And Blue Beetle came around also in 1940, winter 1940. For the first 11 issues, it was published by Fox Publications. And then it was taken over. That ran until about February of 1942. And then it took 12 to 30, issues 12 to 30 were published by Holyoke Publishing. Um, number 12 was published uh, started in June in 1942. So there's about like a 4 month gap in between the last Fox issue and the first Holyoke issue, but it decided to keep the same numbering. Um, so imagine confusion if you're on the thing looking for the next issue of, um, of Blue Beetle, and you find out that, hey, you know, it's out now, but this one published by Holyoke, it's not by Fox anymore. Um, is this the same one? It's been 4 months. Like I don't know. It was the same character, so eventually you picked up. You know that. Um, that run ended in February of 1944, and then Fox took it back up with issue number 31 and let it run to 1960. But then it took another like 4 month break, and the first issue of the second Fox run started in February had a cover date of February of 1944, um, which of course is like another 4 months after that. So again, confusion in their reigns. Um, and when it comes to database software, you'll find sometimes like them all either as individual series or the foxes together and Holix over on the side. It's kind of hard to like keep straight. Um, that's another example of like some of the wacky deals with comic book numbering. Um, why did they do it this way? Probably because they wanted to keep the audience. That's probably would be my main thing. Blue Beetle was a fairly popular comic book at the time. It had, I think, a radio adaptation. It was like one of the bigger ones that from Fox Publishing. So it was that's why kind of after Fox was done, it was picked up pretty quickly. Um, so it's kind of popular. That's why I probably want like all the kids who are buying the comic books to keep on buying the comic books. Like this is the same one, even though it's 4 months later. But I could find myself being confused by that. But um, not as confused as I would be if I grew up in the 50s and tried to collect some of EC's comic books. And I'm going to use two series as examples here. And you're going to have to stay with me because this is good. You might want to get pad and paper, write this down because that's what I did. I have it, right here. And here are my notes for the videos. And just go along with me. I'm going to talk about weird fantasy and weird science. There are two of EC's like more less horror books, more sci-fi and fantasy books, obviously. Um, that they had running at the same time as Tales from the Crypt and Vault of Horror and Haunt of Fear. Um, if you're going there and looking into your back issue bins, trying to get the first issue of either Weird Science or Weird Fantasy, you'll find absolutely no issues of it. It's not because it's ultra rare. It's not because everybody's hoarding it. It's because none of them exist. Uh, the first issue of Weird Fantasy, number one. First issue. Sorry, let me go back. The first issue of Weird Fantasy was actually Moon Girl and Prince number one. Yes, Moon Girl was kind of like a gender swapped kind of like um, version of like a Buck Rogers kind of like a from like I said, I haven't never read it because obviously it's a rare book from the golden age or the atomic age, depending on what age structure you subscribe to. So I never read it, but it looks like on the cover kind of like a Buck Rogers, Flash Gordon sci-fi kind of thing, with her and Alita's being battling space monsters and having a prince. Um, that title only lasted one issue before it went to just plain old regular Moon Girl. The poor prince got sent packing and showed the door, um, and it stayed Moon Girl for 5 issues, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Um, then with number 7, it changed to Moon Girl Fights Crime. Uh, it was there for 2 issues, 7 and 8. Kind of like typing into the whole like the changes in the actual comic book industry, um, where crime issues are becoming more popular. Um, Doing Moon Girl, towards the end, Moon Girl moved from being a sci-fi epic space opera into more of a superhero book, and now came from like a superhero book into a crime book. Um, and so, but after that, it only lasted 2 issues before it went under one of the, what I like to think, one of the most interesting, entertaining kind of changes I've ever seen in a title. Moon Girl Fights Crime became a moon, a girl, a romance. The Moon Girl character completely gone. It became a romance book. I love the daffiness of it. I just love the fact that it's like so like so like out there that it's like they decide to actually have like you know take a superhero comic book and they could like change it to anything else. They could say like like forbidden romances or daring romances or something along those lines. No, a moon, a girl, a romance. Um, this ran from number 9 to number 12. So 9, 10, 11, 12 for 4 issues. It was a romance comic. And with issue 13 is when it finally became weird fantasy. Now, you might say, okay, well, this is it. This is done. We're done. We're already caught up. We have nothing to do. Weird fantasy only lasted um, for, I believe, four or 5 issues. Um, from 13, 14, 15, 16, and 17. So 5 issues. 13, 14, 15, 16, and 17. 5 issues before the people at ECU decided, like, wait a minute, we should have started this as a new number 1. So they changed the number to reflect this by making the next issue number 6. So yes, if you're trying to collect weird fantasy and also later weird science, but I'll get to that in a second, you'll have 2 issues of number 13, 2 issues of number 14, 2 issues of number 15, 2 issues of number 16, and 2 issues of number 17 to try to keep track and keep straight. If you're a collector and you already know by cover and everything like that, it's still a little confusing, but you'll probably be able to figure it out. If you're trying to buy it for your loved one, your boyfriend, girlfriend, husband, father, son, yeti, yogi, whatever, um, it will be almost impossible to tell the two unless you have the actual pictures of what. Unless like your significant other needs both of them, then you could just buy both of them. But if you have one who doesn't have the other, going there would be a dangerous prospect because they're very expensive. So you might be paying hundreds, if not thousands of dollars for a comic book like your loved one already has. Um, but a similar thing happened with Weird Science as well. It started off with its first 2 issues as being kind of like the Happy Houligans, I believe that. Um, that was back in, when was it? Like fall 1947 to I guess January, February 1957. Like these are like the like it only went 2 issues, so it's like back to back. So like the next season, I guess, would be a winter. Um, it was kind of like a family kind of like a Archie, but with a whole family kind of thing. It had like a little bit of a western scene to it, based on the covers. But I assume there's a western theme because with issue number 3, the Happy Houligans became Saddle Justice, a western title with cowboys riding the plains, bringing bad guys to justice. Um, this lasted from issue 3 to issue 8. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So 6 issues. Before it was renamed Saddle Romances. Yes, I guess when the Cowboys were done seeking their justice, which only took 6 issues, they decided to get a little romance in. Um, again, this seems to be a case of EC trying to chase after both these titles, whatever might be the hottest kind of property at the time. Um, Westerns were popular, romances were popular, horror was popular. They scored horror with a whole bunch of them. Sci-fi was popular. So they're trying to find out something that they'll stick and help with their sales figures. Um, but Saddle Romance lasted from issue number 9 to issue number 11. Um, uh, so 3 issues of Saddle Romances. And I guess it took that long to get the sales reports back because uh, the next issue after that, number 12, changed to Weird Science. And once again, It has Weird Science from number 12 to number 15, 12, 13, 14, 15, for 4 issues. Before EC realized, hey, we should start with number 1, but instead of starting all over with number 1, it started with pretending that Weird Science number 12 was also Weird Science number 1. So it changed after it went from Weird Science 15 then to Weird Science number 5, which lasted to issue number 22. Which, once again, if you are looking to collect Weird Science, you say it with me. You have 2 number 12s, 2 number 13s, 2 number 14s, 2 number 15s, and 2 number and luckily that's where it stops. There's no only 116. Again, very confusing. And it wasn't done because with the 23rd issue, Weird Science and Weird Fantasy were merged into one book, which ran for 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 7 issues. Weird Fantasy and Science. So you have all that going on for you, which is weird. Um, so I don't collect ECs because they're too expensive, and I never got into them. I try to get the reprints when I can or whenever, or the big archive books. I have a couple of those, but it would drive me batty trying to like track down each individual issue, especially when you have like if you're going on eBay to try to find them and you need Weird Science number 14, and there's 2 different volumes in it, and you're not really sure which one is which, and yeah. But that was EC Comics. That was a different breed of cat. The next issue took place in Marvel in the 60s. And there's a reason for this, and I'm going to go into a little bit of detail about this. Basically, in 1957, thereabouts, Marvel decided to change its distribution over to a company called American News Company, or uh, is it American or yeah, American News Company, to do all their things they need. They're printing like 40 to 60 books per month. Um, there are a lot of like companies did this. They're trying to saturate the market with their stuff and force all the other ones out. DC did this too, and it kept on going into the 70s before it just kind of like it's still going today, I imagine too. Um, but decided to go with this new distributor to distribute all their comic books, which they thought would be okay, have a broader reach, and go into more markets. Unfortunately, the American News Corporation was News Company, I'm sorry, was under investigation. Uh, there's some shady practice on there, and the result of this was a bunch of like legal action that eventually caused the company to go out of business, like almost immediately after Marvel signed the agreement. So Marvel went from having a relatively good, they thought it was going to be a distributor, to having no distributors. And the only distributor at the time who could actually handle their books was a one that's called Independent Distributions. Independent Distributions was not technically independent. It was owned by DC Comics, or the company that owned DC Comics. But obviously, they're sister companies. So Independent Distribution gave preferential treatment to DC. They still, out of the goodness of their own heart, decided to offer Marvel, which at the time was named Atlas, a olive branch to actually publish their books. But it kept them to 8 books per month. They went from like 40 to 60 down to 8, which of course caused a lot of trouble and a lot of like kind of like um, reshuffling of the deck. If you notice, a lot of the books for this time are bi-monthly. That's a way for them to publish more books. Like half their line, they'd be able to publish 16 books instead of 8. 16 different titles, I should say, instead of 8. Half of them would come out on the odd months, half of them come out on the even months. Then, of course, like the superheroes started coming in, and Marvel Atlas changed it into Marvel, and it started with a Fantastic Four number 1. So superheroes became more popular. They started creating more of them, but they're still under the limited amount of space they could do. So they're fixed to that with their team books. Like one of the reasons why the Avengers was created is to give another outlet for this popular heroes, Hulk, Thor, Iron Man, and the Wasp and Ant Man. Um, so you can see them 2 times a month instead of just once in their regular titles. But the regular titles weren't their regular titles. Um, they had a sense of anthologies, like Tales to Astonish, which started off as a horror anthology. Tales of Suspense also started off as and Strange Tales. They were all started off in the 50s as kind of like the horror anthologies that were popular in the day, and they eventually morphed into housing superheroes. Um, Starting off with, say, Tales to Astonish. Tales to Astonish was where Ant Man made his first appearance. Um, but in a horror, like a horror story about the guy who became shrink down ant size and got trapped in an ant hill. It was kind of like a one-off thing, and they decided to expand that into a comic book character. Um, and eventually his character became Ant Man, and then became Giant Man. Giant Man became one of the leads of Tales to Astonish. Um, and eventually Hulk. Hulk had a brief series in 1962. They ran 6 issues, but then again, like it wasn't doing well enough to justify taking up one of the 8 spaces, so his series was canceled, and he was moved over, and he became a co-feature in Tales of Astonish. So half the book would be a Giant Man uh, story, which was a character that Ant Man morphed into, and the other half would be Hulk. And Hulk started in there with issue number 60, and Giant Man lasted until issue number 70 when Submariner came over and took over the other half. And that tandem would last until the end of the issue, which would be number 101. Strange Tales um, originally had was originally like a horror movie. Then the Human Torch, one of the most popular members of the Fantastic Four, got his own solo adventures in the book, starting with issue 101. Um, then he was joined like 9 issues later by a new creation by Go and Stan Lee, Doctor Strange. Doctor Strange's first appearance in comic books at all was 110. And eventually he would come over to take over the second half of it, just like um, the Hulk did with Tales of Astonish. He became the second feature of that. But eventually Human Torch was winning popularity, so they introduced another character in there, uh, Nick Fury. And it was, I believe at the time they had he had a separate series, uh, Sergeant Fury and his Howling Commandos, was taking place during World War II. This one was a modern spy update. Nick Fury, Agent of Shield. It took over in the Strange Tales in 135, and Doctor Strange and Nick Fury would continue until that series ended in 168. And then we have Tales to Suspense. Tales of Suspense is known as being the place where Iron Man first appeared in issue number 39. That's his first appearance anywhere, and he stayed on there until the end, but of the series for another like 60 issues. But in issue number 59, 20 issues later, he was joined by Captain America, who was recently revived in the Avengers title and was getting enough good positive spots in the letter columns that they started to give him his own feature in Tales of Suspense. And they paired up in the comic book until issue number 99 when that ended. Why did all these anthologies end? Well, that's when Marvel decided to negotiate its contract with Independent and saying, "Hey, we are enormously popular. We have so much money coming from this. We should be able to publish more comic books, as much comic books as we want. It's like, yeah, I know you're DC's guys, but we're beating them even with the amount of comic books we have. So it makes no sense to keep us down because it's you can make more money by giving us more comics to put on the shelf. And the Independent and DC Comics were looking to be sold at the time, so trying to make it look as positive and as like kind of like as attractive as it could be. So more money coming in means it's more of attractive to potential buyers. So they agreed. So in 1968, you'll notice a whole bunch of expansion in Marvel Comics line. Marvel Comics went from like having 8 issues to having like dozens of issues. They didn't go as far as back in the 50s before they had to sign up with independent, but they expanded quite exponentially, and they did away with the whole two hero books. Tales of Astonish was canceled, um, and the Hulk and Submariner were spun off into their own series. But this is where the numbering comes in. Submariner got a brand spanking, fresh and shiny new #1 issue. The Incredible Hulk, his next issue became 102, which followed the numbering of Tales to Astonish. So that became Incredible Hulk Volume #1. And if you recall, I said, like, wait a minute, Bill, #1, didn't he have 6 issues prior to that? Yes. A lot of people, when it comes to databases software, I know ComicBase does this, and several others do. They consider the first 6 back in 1962 and 102, which started in 1968, to be a continuation of the same series. So if you're looking at your friend's collection, or your girlfriend's collection, or boyfriend's collection, or your father or your mother, whatever, and you see like, wow, he needs 1 to 6, and he needs 102 to 115, but he has all of them in between, like 7, and I have to definitely go through this. No matter how much it costs, he might want me to do something else, but I'm trying to complete that run and get that set. It's like, no, he doesn't have that. Incredible Hulk #7 to 101 does not exist. It was he was in Tales to Astonish at that time, and he didn't even get like to be in issue #7 of that. So yeah, so that's a weird thing to think of. We're going to Strange Tales. Strange Tales also spun off its characters into individual series. It ended with 168. Um, Nick Fury was the lucky guy here who eventually got his own series, and with Nick Fury Agent Shield #1, and Doctor Strange continues the numbering of Strange Tales, which was with number 169. Then we have Tales of Suspense, and it's been spun its characters off into individual series as well. This time, Iron Man was the lucky person who got a new #1 out of it, and Captain America continued the numbering of Tales of Suspense, which ended at 99. So the first issue of Captain America's solo series in 1968 starts with 100. Have a headache yet? If you want to pause the video and go get like yourself some aspirin or get yourself a stiff drink, I will not blame you, and this is a judgment-free zone, because this is hella, 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 hella confusing. Um, and these are just small examples. I have 2 more to deal with. They'll do that, but let me get into those now. Now we'll talk about more of this afterwards. Next example I want to talk to is Marvel Legacy. If you notice in like comic books today, sometimes you see like the number be like Spider-Man 50, and have a legacy number if they're like 7 or 1 or whatever. What this is basically Marvel back in 2017. Prior to 2017, they were kind of like big on like, hey, this series isn't doing well. Yeah, well, after 12 issues, we're going to start with another #1, give it a little boost, and so you have like, as I covered in the volumes video, you have like 8 to 10 or 11 different volumes of certain kind of like comic books, because they used to stop it and start up with a new one, because new #1s um, like cost more, like sold more, so it made more money. But they also realized, like, hey, we have a lot of these historic books that are coming up to like monumental kind of like numberings, like like Iron Fist is closing on its 75th issue ever published. You know, Cable is going for its 150th issue. So back in 2017, they did a whole bunch of comic books in their line. They're currently going there who had anniversaries coming up, and made them into legacy numbers. They changed the numberings back to the legacy numbers. Just to give you 4 examples here. Cable recently had a comic book issue there, um, a series that started as his 3rd volume of his series, um, with number 5. But then they changed it over to like 151, I believe. It might be 150, uh, and added it as considered to be part of, back into volume number 1. Because it was a bigger anniversary issue. I think it was maybe start back to 150, maybe. I am not 100%. I have to double check that and get back to you on that. Um, but imagine surprise you're going in and seeing that. Avengers had its 7th volume up and running. It was at number 11, but they swatched it back to, um, I believe it's number 620. Like it was at one number in the 600s to prepare for the upcoming um, anniversary issue. Luke Cage was another one. It was recently started. Had 5 issues in it, and it was changed to 166. What happened was it added the Luke Cage started in Luke Cage Hero for Hire, and then went on to Luke Cage Power Man, and then Power Man with issue 50 became Power Man and Iron Fist because Iron Fist joined the comic book. That ran until issue 125, and then Luke Cage had various different issues after that. I think the only one they actually count towards his numbering purposes is his mainstream one, which was his Cage issue that came out in the 90s, which I think ran for like 11 or 12 issues. He had 2 other issues. One was a Max comic book, and one I think it was the second one was also maybe a Max comic book. The first one of his Max comic book series was a miniseries about 4 issues written by Brian Azzarello with art by Richard Corbin. It was more of an adult fare, so that's probably why I didn't include it in this one. And the other one was done by Samurai Jack cartoon creator Getty Anoski, um, by the creator of Samurai Jack. He took over for like about a 3 or 4 issue miniseries too, but I think they keep those both out of continuity. And the 4th example is Iron Fist. Iron Fist also had his 5th volume. It was up to number 7, and they rebranded it back to number 73, which takes into account his first series, which was like 14 issues, and he had a whole number of fill-in like miniseries of like 6, 7 issues all the way through. Like all like volumes like 2 through 3 were all like series that lasted. I think the longest one was the Immortal Iron Fist, which are including in this, was ran for like 15 issues. So until they got up to the number of 73, and they started that so like because he could have the 75th anniversary issue, and all these had anniversary issues coming up. And the difference between anniversary issues and number 1 issues is that Marvel could put more pages in it and more content and charge a higher price point for it. So that made it more attractive to change these all over to the anniversary issues. Of course, it you know it played havoc with like sorting your comic books. Do they go with issue number 1, issue number 2? Also, keeping track of your comics. Many of the databases like Comic Base is one I use. They consider Luke Cage number 166 um, still part of Luke Cage volume number 5, or like or volume number 3, or whatever volume it was, because the first volume of Luke Cage they consider to be part of the Luke Cage legacy is Hero for Hire. So it's not the same title, so they kept the difference. But when they changed it to Iron Fist to number 73, Comic Base considers that still part of volume number 1. So volume number 1 skips from issue 14 or 15 all the way to number 73. This also played havoc on my thing. I think I was getting these my books from direct discount comic book services, and they had the whole a whole pull list function. You could just keep the book in there and keep on having it automatically taken. It's all collated together, so you don't have to like actually search through each one and put one in each individually each time you put an order in. They and this is one of the reasons why I proved like their whole system wasn't worth the internet it was printed on. Um, they completely dropped the ball on this. I was expecting getting like the next issue of Luke Cage. I got number 5. I never got 166, and I have gaps in all these series um, because their pull list function wasn't like set up for it. I had to go back in there without any knowledge from them or letting me know about this to go in there and reorder the Luke Cage number 166. And granted, it's my own fault because I didn't double check the. They give you a list of all the comic books they have in your pull list every month. I didn't go through with a fine tooth comb to find out what was going on and see them missing until you know I noticed a couple months without having them. But then again, it's like I shouldn't have to. But I digress. That's a grief and a grievance for another time. So that was confusing both at the time and probably people looking back now are kind of confused to know, okay, well, which series does this go to? Like, what does he need and stuff like that. Um, Next up, we are going to talk to about Nexus. Now, I'm filming this, even though you're seeing it far in the future, after I did a whole like haul video, and it was a sale at my local comic book store where they're having 60% off. And I was trying to fill in issues and one of certain titles. Um, one of the titles I was trying to fill in was Nexus. And I mentioned there, like, I wasn't sure exactly, like, was I done? Did I have a complete set or not? Did I need to get more? I do need to get more. I need number 13 of the first original set because this has another pitfall you have when it comes to numbering. The original series ended with issue number 80. And if you had issue 80, you probably figure like, okay, you're good, you're done with it, everything's good, you don't have to worry about it. Um, I don't have to worry about the rest of the miniseries because then it came out with a one issue, uh, one shot featuring his origin. I believe at this time it changed from like first to Dark Horse, and then Dark Horse came out with another series uh, from called Alien Justice. I believe this is a 4 issue series, and then came out with another series, miniseries, Nexus Wages of Sin. Then there's another miniseries, a 4 issue miniseries, I believe, called The Executor's Son. Then you had a 2 issue thing called GodCon. And then I believe the license went back to Rude Dude Comics, which is a publisher owned by Steve Rude, the artist and co-creator of Nexus. And they did Nightmare in Blue, which ran from which was actually a separate miniseries, but also considered 95 through 98 of the original series. And retroactively, all those miniseries that came between those that were kind of retroactively put into the main series. So, like the Origins one shot became Nexus 81, for instance. It closed out with a space opera miniseries, which I ran from, I believe, from 99 to 101, which was the final series of that series ever. There's been other like miniseries along that. So, to answer the question I asked myself way back when, by this time, probably 2 months ago, if you're watching this, but for me, it was just yesterday. Um, do I have a complete set? Am I close to a complete set of Nexus? The answer is no, because you know, just over a span of like a couple of years, the series went from 80 issues up to 120, 102 issues. So, yeah, I got that going for me, which is nice. How would you be able to tell this as a casual person to know difference between numbering and like know what to get? this is why you should communicate with whoever you're buying your comic books for. Um, I mean, if you're going off and you want to do something special and surprise them and like not have it, let them know that you're buying comic books for them, and that's great. That's going to be a great surprise. But certain things you should probably stay away from, or you know, this might be a little bit too complicated. Because it's complicated for me, and I've been doing this for 40 years, over 40 years, since it's a wee baby. Well, since I was 10, but nonetheless, um, it's mad confusing. So maybe try to confuse it. But if your special significant other wants a specific comic book and it has this kind of issue breaks in it, and the examples I give you are just scratching the surface. This thing would be over 5 hours long if I went into detailed every single comic book that had some kind of quirkiness in their numbers. Um, Check it out. What you do if you want to keep on buying this, check it out on like a Grand Comic Book Database. They usually have it's an index basically, and you click on the issue and it says like numbering begins after Saddle Romances number yada yada yada. Um, so it's that way you'll be able to find out and keep track of it and do that like stuff like this. It also says it tells you like if you go to the main site, it says carries on from Saddle Romances, becomes continues with after its 11th issue as Weird Science number 6 or whatever. Um, do a little research, have to do due diligence beforehand if you have any specific ones, just to find out what's going on. If you do go to a reliable comic book shop or a comic book dealer at a convention, they will be able to help you with this. They'll be able to let you know, like if you ask, I need a copy of Weird Fantasy number 12, and they go like, which one, the first one or the second one? And this way you be able to find out, okay, which one. It's the one with the cover with the person's, killing somebody, which it won't really be that interesting because actually it might be for Weird Fantasy because it wasn't really a horror, but like nonetheless, I digress. Try to go with them and try to figure out which one you want, but it all boils down to before you even think sorry about that. The best advice would be to go to the person you're buying these comic books for and figure out what he wants and travel from there. Um, that's all we have for this episode of Girlfriend's Guide to Comics. Keep it confusing with the growing up comic books, which is what I do tomorrow. And yeah, I don't know why. I just start happening right now. But if you found this useful, please hit the like. If you want more information like this, I do have I'm going to put a playlist of all of them onto the side, so you could go through all of them and travel and take what little I could have to teach you, and hope you find it useful. If you have any further questions or anything like that, you can put in the comments. I could discuss. I could try to answer for you the best I can. And if I can't, maybe somebody else could. And if you like this, hit subscribe and hit the star. I'm trying to expanding the scope of this channel. So right now it's going to includes haul videos. This segment, Girlfriend's Guide to Comic Books, growing up comic books, which is like telling the history of uh, my growing up buying comic books from like a little kid all the way up to present day. Started a Guiding Light segment, which is going to be a guide to the next week's new releases. So in case you want to pop off and go to buy a new comic book, I'll try to tell you the best or the most interesting stuff coming out every week. And I'm also starting to do comic book reviews, which if you have anything that you'd like me to review, get in touch with me. Maybe put your information, contact information in the comments, or get in touch with me somehow, and I'll try to see if I can review it. So there's a lot of stuff for you to watch, and a lot of stuff I'm doing for you that I think is fun. I hope you will too. So subscribe and hit the little bell to be notified. So that's it. I'll wrapping up, and until I see you next time, keep collecting.